The air inside the terminal shimmered with the kind of stillness only luxury can afford. Polished floors, golden lighting, and the hushed voices of first-class travelers accustomed to being served, not questioned. Naomi Ellis stood quietly at Gate 8, her black leather tote slung over her shoulder. Her boarding pass gripped lightly between two fingers. She wasn't here to prove anything. She had already done that, years ago, in boardrooms that dismissed her, in venture meetings that underestimated her, in late-night marathons of code and strategy no one ever saw. Final boarding for Sky Nova Flight 417 to San Francisco, the gate agent announced. Naomi walked forward with purpose, not urgency. Her charcoal blazer was neat, but unassuming. No logos, no jewelry, just her, quietly confident. At the aircraft door, a blonde woman in a crisp navy uniform stepped in her path. "This is first class, ma'am," she said with a thin smile that didn't touch her eyes. Naomi blinked slowly. "I know. I'm sorry, but this cabin is reserved for premium passengers." She held out a hand like a velvet rope. Naomi didn't flinch. "I am a premium passenger. Seat 1A. She held up the boarding pass without raising her voice. The attendant, her name tag read, Sophia Grant, glanced at it, then back at Naomi. Her smile faltered. Just then, a woman behind Naomi cleared her throat. Loudly, Victoria Blackwood, diamond tier, Herm's handbag, white cashmere coat, and the unmistakable tone of generational entitlement. "Excuse me, but I always sit in 1A. Sophia's posture shifted. She took the boarding pass from Naomi, examined it again, and without a word tore it in half. Naomi's expression didn't change. She only said, "That was a mistake." "No," Victoria said smugly. "The mistake was thinking you belong here." A few heads turned. A man in business attire pulled out his phone. Quietly, deliberately. "I paid for that seat," Naomi said, voice steady, eyes fixed on Sophia. Sophia's smile returned, tighter now. "Please step aside, or we'll have to call security." "Do that," Naomi replied. 30 feet behind them, a young man in a gray hoodie, Jaden Cole, had already started recording. He wasn't shocked. He'd seen this kind of scene before. Too many times. But something about this woman, how calm she was, how unshaken, made him keep filming. What none of them knew, as tension swirled in the cabin like a gathering storm, was that Naomi Ellis didn't need to fight for her seat. She was about to fight for something far greater. And this time, she had come prepared. The silence that followed Sophia's command was heavy. So heavy, in fact, that it pressed down on the first-class cabin like thick fog. Naomi didn't move. Her breathing remained even. Her eyes dark and unwavering locked onto Sophia's with a stillness that unsettled. Passengers were no longer pretending not to look. A man near the window lifted his phone discreetly, pretending to read emails. A middle-aged woman tilted her head just enough to capture audio. Jaden Cole, still seated 5 rows back, adjusted the focus on his phone's camera and zoomed in. He had no idea who Naomi Ellis was. Not yet. But something told him this moment, this still frame in time, was going to matter. Sophia pressed the call button on the wall. "Security to gate boarding area. Disruptive passenger in cabin," she said into her mic, her voice all clipped efficiency. Naomi didn't argue. Instead, she tapped her smartwatch. A single pulse vibrated through her wrist. Silent, invisible, halfway across the terminal, tucked in a secure hallway, beside a staff-only sign. Aria Lynn felt her own smartwatch buzz. She looked down, saw the code, and knew it had begun. Aria didn't work in customer service, or operations, or marketing. She was Skynova's chief systems architect and the real brain behind the tech stack that ran the airline's reservation system, internal communication, and compliance automation. Years ago, Naomi's startup, Logic Systems, had won the contract to integrate it all. What Skynova didn't know was that Naomi never truly left. Through Aria, and a backdoor left quietly in the framework. She had retained access just in case days like this happen. Inside her operations tablet, Aria watched as systems blinked to life. Audio logs syncing, surveillance pings initiated, internal chat monitors activated. She slipped into a private maintenance corridor and took position beside a data access port, her fingers moving fast over the screen. Back on the plane, Naomi was still standing. She hadn't spoken another word, but the energy had shifted. There was no fear in her posture, just quiet control. Victoria chuckled. She thinks she's making a statement. Sweetheart, we've seen your type before. Entitled, angry, broke. A few heads turned sharply. A woman muttered, "Wow." Under her breath, Naomi didn't look at Victoria. Instead, she turned slightly and spoke toward Jaden's lens. "This isn't about anger," she said quietly. "It's about visibility." Sophia snorted. "You think you're going viral?" Naomi turned her head. "I think I'm already recorded." Then, like lightning cutting through clouds, the intercom crackled, followed by an eerie playback, disruptive passenger in cabin. It was Sophia's voice, repeating across the cabin speakers. Then came Victoria's words, "She doesn't belong here." Whispers turned into audible gasps. Heads spun. Sophia's face went pale. "What the hell is that?" she barked, rushing toward the flight deck. "Cut it off." Too late. From the data room, Aria had patched the live mic feed directly into the cabin PA system. She didn't stop there. On her screen, she activated timestamp 79B, a high-priority message with elevated admin clearance. On every supervisor's monitor across the airport, a notification blinked: red compliance violation detected. Passenger N, 1, first-class boarding interruption, escalated in the crew lounge. A junior flight coordinator leaned forward. "That's not from our system." "Who authorized it?" her manager asked. "I don't know," the assistant whispered, staring at the screen. "But it's flagged Tier 1, internal ethics." Back on the aircraft, 2 uniformed security guards arrived at the front of the cabin. One gestured to Naomi. "Ma'am, we've been asked to escort you off the plane." Naomi nodded politely, but before she moved, she reached into her tote and retrieved a small silver badge. She held it up, not to the guard, but to Sophia. "Do you know what this is?" she asked softly. Sophia's lips parted, but no sound came out. "It's a vendor badge," Naomi said. "One of only 3 in the country. It grants me security access to Skynova's internal systems. Because I helped build them," Victoria scoffed. "So you're some tech girl still doesn't give you the right to sit here," Jaden muttered. "Oh, my God." Naomi raised her chin slightly. "I am not some tech girl. I'm Naomi Ellis, CEO of Logic Systems, exclusive provider of your airline's reservation, compliance, and comm software. And that seat," she nodded at 1A, "is mine, legally, logistically, contractually, Gasps rippled across the cabin. I warned you, Naomi said, addressing Sophia now. I told you this moment would define you. Victoria's voice was shaky. You're bluffing. Naomi's smartwatch buzzed once. On cue. The cabin lights dimmed for half a second, then flickered back. In the terminal command center, Arya had just initiated Level 2 control override, a signal not to shut the plane down, but to show what they could do. Across airport systems, gate agents received a silent flag. Hold Flight 417, VIP override initiated. Inside the plane, Jaden was still filming. This is real, he whispered. This is happening. A child 2 rows back asked his dad, is she like the boss of the plane? The father didn't answer, but he didn't say no. Sophia's voice cracked. You can't do this. Naomi stepped aside, gesturing toward the aisle. You can try to remove me, but the world is watching now. One of the security guards shifted uncomfortably. We need to verify this. Naomi held up her phone and tapped a button. A second later, the CEO of Sky Nova, Martin Delane, appeared on a video call on her screen, his expression grave. Naomi, he said, we've been alerted. We're halting the flight. Please remain where you are. Sophia stumbled backward. Victoria dropped into the nearest seat, her face burning red. Jaden turned his camera on himself. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She didn't fight. She just flipped the entire airline upside down and didn't even raise her voice. Naomi sat down in 1A, calmly, then looked toward the lens. This isn't about revenge, she said. It's about restoration. By the time Naomi Ellis stepped off Flight 417, the storm she had triggered was already sweeping across the country. Jaden Cole's footage had hit social media like wildfire. The video opened with a torn boarding pass, followed by cold dismissals, veiled insults, and, finally, the real twist, Naomi's calm declaration of who she was and the quiet detonation of control she executed from a single smartwatch tap. The clip was just under 5 minutes, but it felt like a feature film. And by the end of the first hour, it had crossed 1 million views. The hashtags were everywhere. Sky Nova shame this seat is. My Naomi Ellis did not come to play. News outlets scrambled to verify the story, but the confirmation came fast. A spokesperson from Enlogic released a brief statement. Yes, the Naomi Ellis is our CEO, and yes, her company powers the systems you fly with. At Sky Nova's Manhattan headquarters, the atmosphere was panic wearing a suit. The emergency board meeting was called at 2:03 p.m., exactly 37 minutes after the video went viral. Inside the glass conference room on the 44th floor, executives paced, phones buzzed like angry bees, lawyers murmured behind laptops, PR heads flipped between statements, but nothing could settle the room. CEO Martin Delane stood at the head of the table, face stone gray, jaw clenched. He hadn't spoken yet. Next to him sat Damian Sloan, head of regional operations, the same man who had authorized Sophia Grant's removal of Naomi from the flight. His face glistened with sweat, his collar visibly damp. Across from them, Claire Weston, Sky Nova's chief legal counsel, slammed a folder onto the table. She has the receipts, Claire said. Every contract, every system override, every line of code is signed by her team. She didn't hack us. She accessed her own platform. Then how the hell was this allowed to happen? Martin snapped, glaring at Damian. Damian stammered. We, we didn't know who she was. She didn't identify herself. She didn't have to, Claire interrupted. We had her flagged in our system already. Premium status, encrypted vendor tag. It was all there. Your crew just ignored it. From the far end of the table, Jared Muldoon, VP of Global Partnerships, interjected. Sir, we've got CNN, MSNBC, and half a dozen other outlets requesting comment, and the FAA has opened a civil review. This is spiraling. What's the stock doing? Martin asked without looking up. Down 17% and falling, someone replied. Martin turned to Claire. Can we get ahead of this? Claire sighed. Only if we own it. Apologize. Fire people and publicly partner with Naomi. Immediately, the room froze. She's not going to want an apology, Damien muttered. She wants our heads. Martin's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a headline. It was a message from Naomi herself. He opened it in silence. Every second you wait, more passengers choose someone else. You know what I built. You know what I can shut down. I don't want destruction. I want change. Meet me. Now. N.E. He turned the screen around for the room to see. Claire leaned in. That's not a threat. That's leadership. She's giving you a door out. Martin stood up slowly. Clear the room. Except executive board members. As the others filtered out, Martin turned toward Damien. You authorized the incident. You pressured the crew. You dismissed a contracted executive in front of half the cabin. Damien fidgeted. I didn't know. You didn't ask, Claire cut in. Naomi has every right to terminate our systems license. If she does, our booking, routing, and real-time coordination all collapse. She's bluffing, Damien insisted. Do you want to bet the company on that? Jared asked. Martin didn't speak. Instead, he walked to the window, looking down at the traffic below. The city didn't care what happened in this room, but the world watching their brand did. We're going to fix this, he said quietly. We're going to meet her terms. Claire exhaled. Effective immediately, Martin continued. Damien, you're suspended pending internal review. What? And tell our PR director to prep the public statement. No deflections, no spin. We're going to do this right. Meanwhile, in a private suite at JFK Terminal 4, Naomi sat with her laptop open and her phone buzzing with calls. She ignored them all. Across from her sat Aria Lynn, reviewing a dashboard filled with access logs, compliance triggers, and message threads. They're scrambling, Aria said. The top 3 execs just revoked their access keys. That never happens unless they're cleaning house. Naomi didn't smile, but there was something calmer in her eyes. Let's hope it's not just cleanup. Let's hope it's growth. She tapped her screen once more and opened the file labeled Sky Nova, Equity Proposal. Just then, a soft knock came at the door. An assistant peeked in. Ms. Ellis, Mr. Delane has arrived. Naomi closed the laptop slowly. Let's see if he came to negotiate or to learn. Later that day, a statement hits the press breaking Sky Nova Airlines issues apology to tech. CEO Naomi Ellis commits to full equity review and new partnership with NLogic Systems. The statement was signed by Martin Delane himself. It included public apology for the mishandling of the incident, immediate termination of the employees involved, a new equity audit system developed by NLogic, formation of a passenger dignity council, chaired by Naomi Ellis. The public reaction was swift shocked, then hopeful. Sky Nova hadn't just admitted failure. It had admitted it was ready to change. And Naomi Ellis, once dismissed at the boarding gate, had just stepped into a far more powerful seat, the one that steers the future. The boardroom at Sky Nova headquarters had never felt so still. No voices, no tapping keyboards, no vibrating phones, just the quiet tension of power tilting. Naomi Ellis stood at the end of the long polished table, her charcoal suit flawless, her presence undeniable. Aisha's eyes scanned the faces before her, executives who had risen through tradition, protected by silence and shielded by comfort. They were now staring at the woman they had once dismissed at a gate. Only this time, she was standing where they had to listen. Behind her, a screen lit up with a single phrase in bold: the Passenger Equity Initiative terms for transformation. Martin Delane, CEO of Sky Nova, leaned forward. "We've issued the apology. We've terminated the crew. We're ready to listen." Naomi's voice was steady. "Then let's begin." She tapped her tablet once. The screen shifted to a structured list. A complete audit of all customer service incidents from the past 5 years, flagged by race, gender, and resolution outcomes. Audit results to be made public quarterly. Oversight conducted by an external civil rights committee co-chaired by Naomi's appointed team. "No redactions," she added. "The public deserves the truth." There was a ripple of discomfort in the room. Naomi's voice dropped slightly. "This includes the Platinum Flyer Agreement with Victoria Blackwood and anyone else whose loyalty is built on intimidation, not merit. Flying first class should be earned by ticket, not by attitude." Jared Muldoon, VP of Partnerships, shifted in his chair. "You're talking about some of our highest value passengers." Naomi met his gaze. "If their value depends on demeaning others, then it's a liability, not an asset." A new body formed within Sky Nova, composed of passengers from diverse backgrounds, travel advocates, and ethics advisors. They will advise on policy, review complaints, and participate in quarterly evaluations of staff conduct. Jaden Cole, the journalist who filmed the viral video, is offered the inaugural chair position. The room buzzed. Someone murmured, "He's just a freelancer." Naomi smiled gently. "And yet, he changed your company more in 5 minutes than most of you have in 5 years. Mandatory quarterly anti-bias and empathy training for all Sky Nova employees, from flight attendants to executives. Training developed in partnership with civil rights educators and behavioral psychologists." Claire Weston, the legal counsel, cleared her throat. "That's going to be a massive undertaking." Naomi nodded. "It should be. You don't correct systemic harm with a slideshow and a checklist." Naomi unveiled a live dashboard showing real-time behavioral flags based on tone recognition, seat assignment data, and complaint patterns. "This is the AI platform my company developed. It doesn't record faces, it doesn't punish, it alerts patterns so humans can investigate fairly." Sky Nova will be the first airline to pilot FairSky. Martin raised a brow. "And who gets to control the data?" Naomi looked him in the eye. "The Oversight Council, not the people trying to hide the problem." The room went silent again. Then Denise Patel, a board member who had remained quiet until now, leaned forward. "You're not here for a settlement, are you?" "No," Naomi replied. "I'm here for reconstruction." Martin exhaled. What if we don't meet all these terms? Naomi didn't blink. Then Logic withdraws all licensing. Fair Sky launches with your competitors, and every file I've archived gets sent to regulators and press. You won't survive the month. It wasn't a threat. It was a timetable. Martin turned to the rest of the board. Are we really going to let her dictate this? Denise spoke before anyone else could. She's not dictating. She's delivering. And honestly, she's right. Paturina, the first internal memo, went out within hours. Subject line, culture change is not optional. It announced the formation of the Passenger Equity Council, with Naomi as lead consultant and Jaden Cole appointed as public liaison. Next came a confidential HR bulletin, effective immediately mandatory training protocols, code of conduct updates, and removal of discretionary downgrade tools from gate staff interfaces. And inside break rooms across the country, the atmosphere was split curiosity, skepticism, resentment, relief. In one employee chat thread, someone posted, "She's going to turn this place into a diversity boot camp." To which someone else replied, "Good, maybe it's about damn time." Sophia Grant sat in silence at her apartment, watching the press conference replay on mute. She wasn't angry anymore. She was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you realize the world moved on and left you behind. Her inbox held a message from Skynova's HR department. It read, "You are no longer employed by Skynova Airlines. However, you are eligible for the Second Flight Program and Accountability and Retraining Initiative created by Naomi Ellis." She stared at the screen. She didn't click it. Not yet. The nameplate on the door didn't say executive. It said Ethics and Reform Lead, N. Ellis. Naomi leaned back in the chair, watching as Fair Sky's first report loaded on the wall monitor. It showed 5 airports, 7 flagged incidents, all actionable. She didn't smile. This wasn't victory. It was responsibility. Behind her. Arya entered with a tablet. Press wants an interview. Decline it. Even CNN, especially CNN. Naomi stood and looked out at the city below. "Tell them," she said softly. "We'll talk when the work's done." The headlines had begun to shift. For the first few days, Naomi Ellis was hailed as a disruptor, a visionary, the woman who took down corporate arrogance with a whisper. But by the end of week 2, the tone changed. Too much power in one woman's hands. Anonymous employee calls new policies overreach. Is Skynova's CEO losing control to a tech consultant? The internet that once praised Naomi was now turning on her with suspicion. Inside Skynova, the resistance took on quieter forms, whisper networks, Slack threads filled with sarcasm, a growing narrative Naomi was here to punish, not to heal. In the executive break room, VP Jared Muldoon sipped his overpriced espresso and muttered to a colleague, "She's got more access than Martin, and she doesn't even work here." 3 floors down, Naomi read that exact sentence in a leaked internal memo. She closed the file and stared at the screen for a long time. Across the room, Arya Lynn paced slowly, watching her. "They're threatened," Arya said. "You knew they would be." Naomi didn't answer immediately. She wasn't surprised. She was disappointed. Naomi sat on the couch, scrolling through public comments. Thousands of voices, some praising her, others calling her a corporate saboteur. Many didn't know what to think. She clicked on one video, a segment from a primetime pundit. Naomi Ellis is the new face of performative justice. She didn't change the system, she hacked it. Naomi stared at the screen, jaw tight, not because it was wrong, because it was incomplete. Her phone buzzed, a message from Jaden Cole. They're baiting you. Don't flinch. You're not here for their comfort. You're here for their kids. She exhaled, slowly, then replied, meet me tomorrow. I need to tell a different story. Naomi stood at the back of a large training hall, watching the new hires undergo bias simulation drills, actors playing difficult passengers, de-escalation tests, scenario-based evaluations that required more than rules. They required reflection. The instructor, a civil rights facilitator named Trina Dawson, paused mid-session when she saw Naomi. Naomi nodded politely. Care to say something? Trina asked. Naomi hesitated, then stepped forward. Most of you don't know who I am, she said softly, and that's okay. I'm not here to supervise. I'm here because I want to understand how it feels to learn. While the whole world is watching, the room went quiet. She continued, you've heard the headlines. You've read the sound bites. But what we're building here, it's not about me. It's about a mother in row 17 whose child gets skipped for snacks. It's about the grandfather who gets told his upgrade glitched. It's about the subtle ways we tell people you don't belong here. A young trainee raised her hand. But what if we mess up? What if we do the wrong thing, trying to do the right thing? Naomi smiled gently. Then we own it. We apologize. We keep showing up. A pause. And if you're scared of getting it wrong, good. That means you're awake. Meanwhile, a meeting convened inside a private suite at the Conrad Midtown. 5 former executives, 2 lobbyists, and 1 PR crisis strategist. At the center, Victoria Blackwood, her Platinum Flyer membership now voided, her influence bruised. She was determined to reclaim control. She's turning Sky Nova into an activism platform, Victoria hissed. Not illegal, one consultant noted, but destabilizing. We hit her where it hurts, Victoria snapped. Undermine her legitimacy, leak her failed ventures, question her real motive. She doesn't want fame, another man replied. Then make her infamous. A headline erupts online. Naomi Ellis once fired entire department at tech startup. Former employees speak out. Old emails. Out of context quotes. A blurry photo of her at a protest 7 years ago. Naomi read the article in silence. Aria stormed into her office. We can shut it down. Issue a statement. Prove it's distorted? Naomi shook her head. No. You're just going to let it sit. Naomi stood, eyes sharper now. I'm going to walk through it. The live stream drew over 2 million views in under 10 minutes. Jaden sat across from Naomi, wearing his signature hoodie in calm intensity. You've been called controlling, vindictive, even dangerous, he said plainly. Naomi nodded. I've been called worse. What do you say to people who say you're going too far? She folded her hands. I say if asking for dignity is too far. What does that say about how close we've settled? Jaden leaned in. And what about the employees who feel uncomfortable with the changes? Naomi didn't blink. Good, because comfort built on injustice isn't comfort, it's compliance. The chat erupted. Preach. This woman is who I want running everything. Protect Naomi Ellis at all costs. A stand with Naomi. Then came the final question. If they try to push you out, what happens next? Naomi smiled softly. They can try to fire the person, she said. but the mirror I held up that stays. 1 week later, Skynova's employee survey yielded the highest engagement in company history. Anonymously, 67% of frontline workers expressed support for the reforms. In the quiet corners of terminals and crew lounges, people began to speak differently about accountability, about culture, about second chances. Naomi didn't claim credit. She didn't need to, because real change isn't loud. It's what happens when the silent start to speak. 6 months later, no one remembered the seat number, not 1A, not the boarding zone, not the gate number, but they remembered her name, Naomi Ellis. What started as a moment of quiet resistance, an unflinching refusal to be dismissed, had become a systemic transformation that now rippled through the entire aviation industry. Skynova no longer looked like the airline it once was. The Bias Doesn't Fly initiative had become a model, not a slogan. Every flight attendant now carried a device loaded with real-time empathy response tools designed to help diffuse tension, identify unconscious bias, and support passengers more equitably. At check-in desks, the Fair Skies system ran silently in the background, flagging unusual patterns in ticket downgrades and random seat shuffles, sending quiet signals to a review team led by former passengers trained in anti-discrimination ethics. And once a week, in a quiet glass-walled room beneath Terminal 4, a new council gathered, not executives, not board members, but passengers, diverse in every sense of the word. They reviewed real data, made real decisions, and reported directly to the CEO. Naomi wasn't at the top of the company, but she was at the center of its conscience. A Skynova employee named Marcus sipped coffee while scrolling his tablet. He tapped on an internal dashboard. The new performance board didn't just show sales, it showed kindness metrics, customer feedback quotes, de-escalation scores, peer recognition badges. Under his name, a quote from a passenger blinked. "He treated me like I mattered. No explanations needed." He didn't say anything, but he smiled. At Naomi's office, a plain envelope sat on her desk. No return address, just a handwritten name in the corner. S. Grant. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "I was wrong. I thought silence was safety. I see now it was complicity. If there's still a space for someone who wants to earn back their place, I'm asking for it. S." Naomi folded the letter slowly. Then she picked up a folder labeled Second Flight Program, Rehabilitation and Reentry. She slid the letter inside, without judgment, without vengeance. Only the belief that change, if chosen, deserved a runway too, in a hangar outside Atlanta. Naomi stood beside a row of teenagers in matching polos and lanyards, eyes wide with both nerves and wonder. It was the launch day of the Wings of Equal Access Fellowship and Initiative she had funded quietly under NLogic, offering underserved youth their first pathway in aviation careers, piloting, engineering, operations, ethics, tech. A young girl named Ayana, no older than 15, tugged on Naomi's sleeve. "Miss Ellis, are you coming with us on the flight?" Naomi knelt slightly, adjusting Ayana's collar. "No, sweetheart. I've already flown that path." She pointed toward the open jet. "Now it's your turn." Ayana grinned and ran toward the others. Naomi stayed behind, watching as the jet lifted into the air, its silver wings catching the morning sun. Her hands were clasped loosely in front of her. She didn't wave. She just watched it rise. News outlets eventually moved on. The social media fire cooled, replaced by newer controversies, newer faces, but something stuck. Other airlines adopted Fair Sky. Some resisted at first, but pressure from advocacy groups, investors, and passengers forced transparency into the mainstream. One by one, change became less an exception and more an expectation. And every time someone asked, "Where did this all begin?" someone would mention a woman with quiet eyes and a sharp mind, who refused to be moved from a seat she paid for. Naomi stood backstage, reviewing her final notes. Arya stood beside her, nodding. "You ready?" Arya asked. Naomi turned, smiled faintly. "Doesn't matter." Arya raised an eyebrow. Naomi continued, "Change doesn't wait for readiness. It waits for courage." The moderator's voice echoed through the ballroom. "Please welcome the recipient of this year's Global Aviation Human Dignity Award." As Naomi walked on stage, the applause wasn't thunderous. It was respectful, the kind that lingers. She took the podium and looked out at the crowd, not just leaders, but crew members, maintenance staff, students, and survivors of systems that once shut them out. And then she spoke, "This award is not for me. It's for the quiet ones, the ones who are told to move, to be less, to wait, to settle. But instead, they stay standing, they stay honest, they stay visible. And when the world tells them to shrink, they choose instead to expand the world around them." Silence. Then a standing ovation, not loud, but full. Late one evening, Naomi walked alone through Terminal 4. No cameras, no staff trailing, no reporters waiting. She paused at Gate 8, the same one from months ago. She stood still for a moment, not out of nostalgia, but to honor the spot where power had once tried to deny her existence and failed. She turned and kept walking, because legacies don't live in moments. They live in motion. Some revolutions are loud. Others whisper their way into history. Naomi Ellis never raised her voice, but she raised a standard, and the skies will never look the same again. The world didn't stop when Naomi Ellis stepped away. She hadn't vanished, just shifted. From stages to strategy rooms, from headlines to hallways, from being the face of reform to becoming the mind behind what came next. 6 months after the Global Aviation Human Dignity Award, Naomi quietly resigned from her consultant role at Sky Nova. There was no press release, no farewell party, just a note left in the break room on the ethics floor. "Systems are only as honest as the people who uphold them. Keep choosing courage over comfort. N.E." And then she was gone. But the change remained. At Terminal 4, the Passenger Equity Council still met every Tuesday. Jaden Cole now chaired it full-time. No longer just the man with the camera, but a builder of bridges. He often quoted Naomi's phrase, "Justice isn't a podium. It's a pattern." On his first anniversary, he shared the story of the moment he almost deleted the footage on that flight, said he didn't want to get involved. Now he tells that story in schools. And every time, someone listens a little differently. At Sky Nova's staff headquarters, a wall once filled with corporate branding had been replaced. Now, it displayed hundreds of handwritten stories, small ones. A gate agent who stood up for an elderly man denied assistance. A flight attendant who apologized without being prompted. A customer who cried after finally being called by name. At the center of the wall, In brushed steel letters, because of one seat, we made room for everyone. Naomi, for her part, spent her mornings differently now. No 5 a.m. briefings, no legal memos. Instead, she sat by a classroom window in a modest community college where she taught ethics in design and technology. Her students often didn't know who she was, just that she listened carefully, that she made them feel seen, and that she always began each class the same way. The most powerful software you'll ever build is the one running inside you. Some people change systems with policies, others with protests. Naomi did it by standing still when it mattered most. And in that stillness, she created momentum that would carry others forward further than she could ever go alone. Because justice doesn't end with the person who starts it. It lives on in those who keep it alive. Every gate, every seat, every voice. In today's world, where noise often overpowers meaning and appearances are mistaken for value, the quiet strength of someone who refuses to be moved by fear, by judgment, by injustice can become the spark for transformation. Naomi didn't shout. She didn't fight back with anger. She stood her ground with dignity. She led with preparation, with purpose, and with vision. And maybe that's what our current life is asking of us. Not to be the loudest in the room, but to be the most anchored. Not to seek revenge when we're wronged, but to use the moment to reveal what needs to change. Because every day, we walk into spaces where we're questioned, misunderstood, or overlooked. Whether it's at work, in our communities, or even in our families, there will always be moments that test our worth. But here's the truth. You don't have to prove yourself to everyone. You only have to know your value and protect it without apology. Stand tall in rooms that weren't built for you. Speak with clarity in moments meant to silence you. And when they underestimate your presence, let your integrity speak louder than your voice ever could. Because real power isn't about control. It's about choosing the kind of legacy we leave behind. One that says, I didn't just sit down quietly, I stood for something. And because of that, the world shifted even just a little.